Welcome to the DCTV News at Noon program. I'm Kelsey Kiesling.
And I'm Kendra Cook. The Southwest TV Translator Association underwrites the news show, and Dolores County Broadcasting Network is the producer of DCTV.
If you have a news topic or tips you'd like to see covered, give us a call. The studio number is 677-4119.
Today's show is live on Tuesday at noon and rebroadcast at 3 and 6 p.m. and again re-aired on Friday at noon, 3 and 6.
Coming up, more wildfires, EPA and the Gold King mine, and more.
And also gunshot death, chicken dispute with weather, sheriff's report, and area happenings. Today is June 27, 2017, and now the news at noon. From the Cortez Journal, a small wildfire in a remote section of the San Juan National Forest near the Divide Road 564 has burned 2 acres and triggered road and trail closures. The 412 fire was reported on June 23rd by a hiker and is believed to be caused by lightning that was documented in the area last week. The low-intensity fire is burning in spruce and fir at over 10,000 feet in elevation near the Ryman and Salt Creek trails, about 5 miles east of the Roaring Fork trailhead in Montezuma County. The National Weather Service also announced that a red flag warning was in effect Tuesday and Wednesday in Montezuma and Dolores counties because of gusty winds and low humidity. A red flag warning means wildfires could start easily and grow rapidly, becoming difficult to control. About 24 U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management crews are on site identifying an area surrounded by forest roads and trails. Fire officials said that because of wet conditions at the high elevation, they will allow the fire to burn for ecological benefits. Crews will closely manage the fire within the predetermined boundaries and let it play its role in making the forest more resilient to future fire, insect, or disease. Fire management will entail some area road and trail closures, including Roaring Fork 435, Scotch Creek Road, and Hotel Draw Road FS 550, Forest Road 564, Coral Trail, Salt Creek Trail, and Ryman Creek Trail. A helicopter from Northern Colorado Helitac is also on scene to assist firefighters. Dolores District Fire Management Officer Patrick Seekings said the fire is burning at ground level at this time. Firefighters are focusing operations and patrols in the Roaring Fork drainage along Forest Road 435 to the east and north along Forest Road 564 to Scotch Creek along Forest Road 550. Undeveloped private land lies 5 miles downslope to the west, but there are numerous natural barriers that will limit fire spread to the west. Crews will continue to patrol the area as long as the fire burns. Smoke is expected to be visible from Colorado Highway 145 at times. Travel restrictions will be posted on roads along with roadside signs posted alerting the public to fire operations. Nighttime smoke may settle downslope in valleys to the south and west along Colorado 145 in the Dolores River Canyon.
Reported by the Cortez Journal, a 60-year-old male was found dead on Sunday from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound on a trail near Haviland Lake, according to the La Plata County Sheriff's Office. Investigator Peter Berryhill did not immediately release the identity of the man, who is believed to be local, as next of kin needs to be notified. Berryhill said hikers reported the incident around 10 a.m. on a trail between Haviland and Electra Lakes. He said it didn't appear the man was camping in the area. A pistol was found nearby. It looked like he was out there alone, Berryhill said. If confirmed, this would be the 11th reported suicide this year in La Plata County. And according to the Denver Post, we have some grim statistics that have long plagued our Centennial State, with mountain towns often hit hardest. Pitkin County's suicide rates are regularly twice as high as other counties in Colorado and 3 times that of the national average. La Plata County's suicide rate is also 3 times the national average. Summit and Eagle counties see more suicides than much of the rest of the country as well.
From the Cortez Journal, this summer will be the first full work season since the Bonita Peak Mining District Superfund site was declared last September, and the Environmental Protection Agency is wasting no time trying to figure out one of the biggest mysteries in the watershed, the American Tunnel. EPA hydrologist Ian Bowen said this week the agency plans to drill 500 feet into the San Juan Mountains to install a monitoring well between the second and third bulkheads on the tunnel. It's not easy, but it's certainly not impossible, Bowen said at a community meeting Tuesday in Silverton. The American Tunnel, which travels about 11,000 feet, served as a transportation route for ore as well as a deep drainage from the vast Sunnyside mine workings to facilities at Gladstone north of Silverton. When Sunnyside Mine closed for good in 1991, attention turned to what to do with acidic discharges out of the American Tunnel. Sunnyside initially pulled the water into a treatment plant, but ultimately decided with the state of Colorado to install 3 bulkheads to stem the flow of acid drainage. But in recent years, researchers believe the Sunnyside Mine pool behind the American Tunnel has reached capacity, and the water is spilling into other mine networks such as the Gold King and Red and Bonita. In the case of Gold King, a historically dry mine, discharges became such a serious concern that the EPA in 2014 stepped in to investigate. The agency placed a bulkhead on Red and Bonita that has not been closed and is evaluating the impacts should the valve be closed. A year later, however, an EPA contracted crew dug too deeply into the collapsed portal of loose rock and gravel around the Gold King entrance, releasing 3 million gallons of mine waste down the Animas and San Juan rivers. The Animas River headwaters are broken into 3 drainages: Mineral Creek, Cement Creek, and the Upper Animas. Each drainage accounts for about a third of heavy metal loading in the Animas, causing a dead zone of aquatic life on the river from just below Silverton to Baker's Bridge. But many people familiar with the basin say the EPA, which could see massive budget cuts under the Trump administration, should focus on the high metal content waters of Cement Creek, where 13 of the 48 sites are located. Treatment options for the American Tunnel are a great unknown. Some have called for a complete draining of the tunnel, which could take decades and cost a lot of money to treat discharges. Others have suggested placing bulkheads on all the mines in the area. Bowen said the EPA first needs to understand the hydrology of the area. The new monitoring well that is expected to be installed by August will be a key tool in that effort because it will provide insight about how much water is behind the bulkheads. The EPA's temporary treatment plant takes discharges only from the Gold King mine, which is now discharging at about 620 gallons a minute. The EPA said it may consider treating other mine discharges upon further evaluation.
According to the Cortez Journal, an Arizona man suspected of importing and distributing large quantities of heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine in La Plata County was a no-show this week at his scheduled jury trial. District Court Judge Suzanne Carlson issued a no-bail arrest warrant for Salvador Estrada, who is charged with importing and distributing narcotics, among other charges related to his arrest in January 2016. The jury trial was scheduled to start Monday. Everyone showed up, including potential jurors, except for the defendant. His Durango defense lawyer, Brian Showalter, declined to comment Friday. Efforts to reach his Denver defense lawyer, John M. Richilano, were unsuccessful Friday afternoon. Estrada was free on a $150,000 cash bail, which he forfeits by being on the lam. Estrada was arrested in connection with a 9-month investigation dubbed Operation Bad Mule, which culminated with the seizure of about $1.3 million worth of heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine by the Southwest Drug Task Force in La Plata County. He was one of 3 arrested on suspicion of trafficking drugs into the region. The others were Stacy Lutz and Raquel Salazar, all of Casa Grande, Arizona. Lutz pleaded guilty to 2 counts of felony drug possession and was sentenced to a year in jail and 3 years probation. Salazar pleaded guilty to intent to distribute controlled substances and was sentenced to 4 years probation. Authorities seized 10 pounds of meth, 7 pounds of heroin, 2.3 ounces of cocaine, $5,100 in cash, and 2 automobiles. The task force characterized Estrada as the kingpin of the drug smuggling ring. Estrada faces several decades in prison if found guilty.
From the Cortez Journal, Canyons of the Ancients National Monument is one of 27 monuments earmarked for review by Secretary of Interior Ryan Zinke, but his recent comments indicate it is not a priority for changes. During a Natural Resources Committee hearing June 20th, U.S. Senator Cory Gardner, Republican from Colorado, told Zinke that Canyons of the Ancients is what, quote, the Antiquities Act was intended to do, protect cultural treasures while incorporating the historic use of the land. I urge you to protect this monument as it stands. When Gardner asked for an update on the monument, Zinke responded, it is not on our priority review list. Then on June 22nd, during a budget hearing for the Department of Interior, U.S. Representative Scott Tipton, Republican of Cortez, told Zinke that Canyons is important to my district, and to me personally, of course, and should there be any changes moving forward, we'd really appreciate making sure we're in concert with your office in having good communication. Zinke replied, my intent was not to rip off Band-Aids and create wounds where there are none. The intent was to make sure that monuments had public input, that there's overwhelming support, and to make sure that the monument designations in the prescribed period followed the law. In May, Tipton and Gardner sent Zinke a letter urging the Interior Department to preserve Canyons of the Ancients as it is. The monument was designated in 2000 by President Bill Clinton. When compared with regional national parks and monuments, Canyons of the Ancients scored in the 82nd percentile for mammal diversity, better than Arches and Canyonlands and Grand Canyon. For bird diversity, the monument scored at the 65th percentile, which is also higher than Arches at 54, Canyonlands at 39, and Grand Canyon at 60. For reptile diversity, it scored at the 73rd percentile, which was slightly higher than Arches, Canyonlands, and the Grand Canyon. Canyons of the Ancients has a variety of herpetological resources, including habitats for the Mesa Verde night snake, long-nosed leopard lizard, and twin-spotted spiny lizard. Kelly said monuments are protected for a variety of reasons, including natural features and cultural history. What is sometimes overlooked is the scientific underpinning of these places.
Reported by the Cortez Journal, after years of wrangling and weeks of trial, a jury says a huge chicken farm can stay put in western Colorado. This complicated trespass case pitted Suzanne Raymond, a local veterinarian, against her neighbor Edwin Hostetler, who operates a 15,000 hen egg-laying facility. Raymond claimed that her health, her veterinary business, and the value of her property had suffered as a result of emissions from Hostetler's farm. The decision marks a major moment in a tense 5-year conflict. In the fall of 2013, the Delta County District Court ordered the Board of County Commissioners to issue a cease and desist order for the facility, deeming it incompatible with the neighborhood. But the Colorado Court of Appeals later overturned the verdict, allowing the chicken house to reopen. A disagreement between neighbors on Powell Mesa in rural Delta County, where there are no hard zoning regulations, may seem minor, but it has significant implications for the rights of farmers and individual property owners. In March, Olin Lund, who is also a former Delta County Commissioner, wrote to Forrest Lucas, an oil executive and the founder of a nonprofit called Protect the Harvest, which opposes animal rights groups and anti-farming extremists. In his letter, Lund requested financial support for the Hostetler defense and help getting the word out. If Raymond were to win, Lund wrote, a disgruntled neighbor or purposeful activist group would have precedent to single out a single operator and legally hound them to their demise. In a recent interview, Hostetler agreed, this is an issue that's far-reaching, he said. From the perspective of the Farm Bureau, Hostetler's facility is a family farm operating in good faith and should therefore be protected by what's known as the Right to Farm statute. Designed to protect farms from conflicts with neighboring land uses, these statutes vary significantly from state to state. Colorado's is somewhat vague about when it can apply, but in attempting to protect farmers who are being sued, right to farm statutes might tip the scales in their favor. And now, here's our weather report.
As expected, we have a red flag warning that went into effect at 11 a.m. and runs at least until 8 p.m. Gusty winds and low humidity, dry fuels are not going to get better too soon. Tomorrow, Wednesday, has a fire weather watch that will run from noon till 8 p.m. Basically, the area covered is all Colorado's western slope and all the Utah counties that border Colorado, so all of DCTV country is involved. Today's conditions are red flagged and tomorrow's will be worse. Just so you know, a watch means actually be on the lookout for any sign of fire and report it immediately. Tonight, the air in our area is expected to be quite smoky. If you have a room air purifier, set it to work this evening and leave it on through the night. The 7-day online says winds today will run 10 to 20 with gusts to 30, but the National Weather Service fine print says gusts of 35 and no appreciable drop for nighttime speeds. And conditions will be very close to the same tomorrow. There are still some slight possibilities of dry, higher elevation convective activity, cloud formation, but no useful moisture is expected. Afternoon winds will be the strongest. Tomorrow, some convective activity just on the northern border. Again, no real moisture is expected then either. Showers and thunderstorms will become more widespread late this afternoon and into the night in the Midwest. Thunderstorms could produce severe weather and locally heavy rainfall. Wednesday, showers and storms are forecast to continue spreading east across the Midwest and the Great Lakes. Severe thunderstorms and heavy rainfall once again possible. Showers and storms will reach the northeast by Thursday morning. Farther south, scattered afternoon and evening thunderstorms will increase through the middle of the week across the Gulf Coast and the southeast. Temperatures will be below average across the eastern half of the country today. The coolest temperatures are forecast across the Appalachians and the lower Great Lakes at 10 to 15 degrees below average. In the west, temperatures will remain near or slightly above average for most areas. Highs will still rise into the triple digits across areas just to our southwest. High temps are still flowing along in the upper 80s for the next 5 days, and lows will run all in the lower 50s. Winds and gusts will make late afternoons miserable, and tonight will get smoky again, so turn on that AC and the purifier and leave your windows closed if you can. And now back to the news.
Reported by the Durango Herald, the struggle over what American students learn about global warming is heating up as lawmakers and others attempt to push differing theories into the classroom. An overwhelming majority of climate scientists say man-made emissions drive global warming, but there's no such consensus among educators over how climate change and its causes should be taught. Several U.S. states recently considered measures allowing or requiring teachers to present alternatives to widely accepted viewpoints on such topics. For example, a stalled proposal in Iowa would have required teaching opposing points of view on topics such as global warming, and proposed science standards in Idaho would have students taught that human impact is driving global warming and that natural factors also contribute. The debate is arriving on teachers' doorsteps nationwide as thousands are being mailed the book Why Scientists Disagree About Global Warming from a Chicago area advocacy group called the Heartland Institute that challenges the assertion that there is consensus about a human-caused climate crisis. In a follow-up statement, the Institute's president said science instructors should keep an open mind and shouldn't teach dogma pushed by some environmental activist groups. The National Center for Science Education made rebuttal flyers explaining that Heartland relies on debunked theories. The National Science Teachers Association dismissed the mailing as propaganda and urged educators to recycle the books. An NCSE survey released last year of 1,500 public middle and high school science teachers found about 3/4 taught something about climate change during the 2014-15 school year. About 1/4 give equal time to perspectives that raise doubt about the scientific consensus, the survey found. Now, personally, I think it's irresponsible that only 1/4 of teachers give equal time to differing theories. It is my understanding that the only way anything is achieved in science is if we test the boundaries of what we think is true. Remember the Wright brothers and how many people told them there was no way humans could ever fly?
A bit of news that Kendra has been representing recently regarding some proposed controlled prescribed burns by the Forest Service in our area provoked my interest. My first thought was surely there has got to be a better way, and a second question followed quickly. Does anyone actually know what really is produced when forests burn anyway? And can these low undergrowth purges be contained without the loss of big healthy trees? The American Geophysical Union wrote of a study first published June 14th entitled Airborne Measurements of Western U.S. Wildfire Emissions, Comparison with Prescribed Burning and Air Quality Implications. Wonderful, convenient. Someone does know more. Naturally, burning timber and brush launch what are called fine particles into the air. The study showed that it occurs at a rate 3 times as high as levels noted in emissions inventories at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The microscopic specks that form aerosols are a hazard to human health, particularly to the lungs and heart. Greg Huey, an atmospheric scientist at Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta and lead author of the new study, said these are really bad aerosols to breathe from a health point of view. The research also describes other chemicals in wildfire smoke, some never before measured. The air in the Great Southwest isn't nearly so good when fires happen as we might have thought. The previous EPA data had been based on plume samples taken in controlled burns ignited by forestry professionals. The new study was done during 3 major wildfires including the 2013 Rim Fire, the third largest wildfire in California history. Aircraft from NASA and the U.S. Department of Energy were literally flown through the fire with an ensemble of instruments on board. Teams of researchers on board measured chemicals and particles in real time. Huey said, "We actually went right above the fire and measured what was coming out." Bob Yokelson, an atmospheric scientist at the University of Montana in Missoula, has taken a leadership role in many aspects of the research. He's part of a group of about 20 scientists that selected the instruments to be installed on the large NASA DC-8 jet. Georgia Tech also had instruments and scientists on board as part of more than a dozen universities and organizations participating in data collection or analysis. This paper is expected to serve as a basis for the next NASA fire chemical monitoring mission. Methanol, benzene, ozone, and precursors and other noxious emissions collected from wildfire plumes may make it sound like an oil refinery went up in flames. "You can see the smoke, and it's dark for a reason," Huey said. When you go measuring wildfires, you get everything there is to measure. You start to wonder sometimes what all is in there. More on that tomorrow.
Reported by the Cortez Journal, a rig that has begun drilling some of the first of many natural gas wells Ursa Resources plans to develop in western Garfield County residential community stands out in the sense that it doesn't stand out. Some 50 feet shorter than a typical drilling rig, it nearly hides behind a 32-foot tall sound wall that Ursa has erected around the pad where it has begun drilling wells at its first Battlement Mesa pad. It's very small. We sometimes call it the riglet, Hans Wichgram, drilling manager for Ursa, said during a tour the company recently provided to participants in the Energy and Environment Symposium put on by Garfield County and Colorado Mesa University's Unconventional Energy Center. Many who attend the annual symposium put on by Garfield County are representatives of local governments dealing with oil and gas issues in various parts of Colorado, and the Ursa tour was intended to demonstrate firsthand how companies endeavor to reduce the impacts of drilling in urban areas. The diminutive rig is just one example of Ursa's efforts to do that. Its lower profile means it's less visually imposing to residents, but the benefits go further. A smaller rig requires a smaller footprint, which helped Ursa reduce the size of its pad. And it takes about 30 truck trips to move this rig, about half the number for a typical one, which means less local traffic. The long list reflects both actions Ursa volunteered to take and others that Garfield County and the state required of it in exchange for it being able to drill near homes, including a subdivision some 800 or 900 feet away on one side of the pad it's currently drilling on, and an apartment complex a similar distance away on the other side. Through efforts such as increased directional drilling beneath Battlement Mesa from outside the community, Ursa has been able to reduce to 5 and possibly 4 the number of pads it expects to ultimately have to drill from in Battlement Mesa. Installing pipelines ahead of time to handle water will enable it to reduce truck traffic otherwise needed to deal with hydraulic fracturing fluids and water produced from wells.
From the Durango Herald out of Washington, D.C., Representative Scott Tipton, Republican of Cortez, addressed concerned listeners on multiple issues during a telephone town hall Monday evening. Most callers said they were worried about potential changes in health care policies. Asked about Medicaid coverage, Tipton assured residents of Colorado's 3rd Congressional District that those who qualified would keep their coverage. No one is getting kicked off. But both the House and the Senate bills would phase out the Medicaid expansion program. The Affordable Care Act increased the limit of the income people could make while still receiving Medicaid in some states. The expansion increased the number of recipients by 11 million. The bills would curtail federal coverage and would result in the loss of coverage for people above the lower income cap. Medicaid covers 1 in 5 Americans and is the nation's largest single health insurer. Callers also voiced anxiety on coverage of pre-existing conditions. Tipton said no one wants people with pre-existing conditions to be uninsured. Other callers brought up issues like water rights, the opioid crisis in the state, free choice of education, and legislation in favor of small businesses. With regard to small Colorado businesses, Tipton said he is trying to drop the corporate tax from 35% to 15%. The United States corporate tax rate is the highest in the world, and nearly half of Colorado's workforce is employed by small businesses, according to a report by the U.S. Small Business Administration. Tipton said his district has a harder time economically than other districts. Small businesses are the backbone of our country, Tipton said. We need to be able to make sure that America is a place where you want to be able to do business, have the opportunity to grow the business, and be able to maintain the jobs you have, and hopefully be able to create new jobs as well. Tipton also said he is working on water legislation this week and planning to introduce the Water Protection Act. This bill would prevent the federal government from taking private water rights from farmers, ranchers, and ski resorts without compensation. And finally, multiple callers asked about Tipton's commitment to addressing the opioid crisis and providing treatment. Colorado received a $7.8 million grant for opioid treatment and prevention in May from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. A state press release said the money will be allocated for programs like medication-assisted therapy, family therapy, overdose reversal medications, and partnerships with law enforcement. In terms of trying to treat the addiction, this is something that is going to take a committed effort, not only in our community, but resources from the federal government and out of our state as well. The congressman said over 60,000 people signed up to participate in the telephone town hall.
And now for the Dolores County Sheriff's Roundup for the week of June 19th through the 25th. Arrested a man on charges of DUI. Subject was transported to Montezuma County Jail. Deputies investigated a report of vehicles blocking a designated city alleyway. Dispatch received a report of harassment by a local resident. Case is under investigation. Arrested a woman on outstanding warrants out of Grand Junction and Cortez, Colorado. A deputy arrested a man on a warrant out of New Mexico following a traffic contact. Received multiple calls reporting smoke south of town. A deputy responded and was not able to locate it as the smoke dissipated quickly. He did report a lot of dust and wind in the area. While on routine patrol in the county, a deputy noticed a side roll slightly in the roadway. The owner was notified. The deputy pulled the side roll off the road. A deputy assisted the Utah State Highway Patrol in shuttling an individual involved in an accident. That's it for today's roundup. Stay tuned for continuing updates.
In today's High Canyon Country happenings, Montezuma County Board of Commissioners approved implementing a countywide burn ban effective July 1st, 2017. For more information, visit their website at montezumacounty.org. From the Dove Creek Recreation Department, swimming lessons registration is now open. Your child must be 5 years old and by the end of summer or starting kindergarten in the fall to be eligible for participation in swimming lessons. They go from July 17th through the 21st and July 25th through the 28th for 8 days per session total. Bus leaves at 8:15 sharp and will return at 12:30 each day. Meet at the community center to catch the bus. The cost is $55 per child. Registration deadline is Friday, July 7th. Send snacks and drinks with lids for your participant, please. When not in session, there will be supervised fun in the park. Registration information forms and online payment options can be found at dovecreekrec.com. Participants can also register in person at the Summer Activities Program for Youth at the Community Center on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 1 to 3 p.m. And at the State Line Bar and Grill this Thursday, June 29th, also unofficially known as Date Night in Dove Creek, Donnie Johnson will be playing starting at 5 p.m. He'll be playing during dinner. Please call for more information at 677-2649. All of the happenings are posted on our DCTV News at Noon Facebook page, along with the YouTube replays, weather, and original stories and local posts. To share your event or information, please contact us. It's dcbnnews@gmail.com or call the station 677-4119, and we'll be sure to get your news on air.
Thanks for tuning in. News at Noon airs live at noon Monday through Wednesday, then rebroadcasts at 3 and 6 p.m., and again re-aired Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in the same order at noon, 3, and 6.
And also a program note that tonight we're having a New Talk Tuesday again with Dan Fernandez talking about his Cuba visitation. Also be sure to check out DCTV News at Noon on Facebook. Please like us there and share it with a friend.
For Kendra Cook, Jerry Tope, and everyone at DCTV with the News at Noon program out of Dove Creek, USA, I'm Kelsey Kiesling. Thanks for watching.